Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And this morning we've got the awesome Sharon Gill on the show with us. So super excited to speak to Sharon. She's been involved in the martial arts scene for a long time. And no doubt she'll have some good stories to tell us, we hope. Sharon, no pressure.
Good morning.
Hey, morning. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm super excited to be on here today. It's something I've been looking forward to for quite a while now.
Well, we've been trying to get you. We've been trying to get you for a long time, haven't we? So
I know our listeners have they've requested you quite a few times. So yeah, it's finally good to get you on.
Thank you.
No problem. So I'm going to kick off with the first question, as I always do. So can you just give us a little bit of your background, your where you grew up, your schooling, family life, and ultimately how you got into martial arts?
Yeah, sure. So I actually got into martial arts. There was a small kung fu club literally just down the road from myself, and my brother and all his friends were training, and I wanted to do it for ages, and I wasn't allowed because I was too young and I was the only girl. There was this thing back then when girls weren't allowed to train so much as boys. It wasn't seen for the girl to go and do a martial art, and I really kept on at my mum and dad to go. And one day they said, yeah, go along. So I went along and absolutely loved it and pretty much took to it really well, and just stuck with it, and everyone else stopped and I just stuck with it throughout the years.
How things have changed now. I mean, most of my clubs full of little girls doing Taekwondo. Yeah.
Totally changed. The ways have totally changed, and it's good. It's really good, I think, as well for the girls. Really good.
So you mentioned that your brother and all his friends were doing it. What was it that drew them to the martial arts, and then ultimately drew you to doing kung fu? What was it? Was it the kicks? Was it the forms?
So yeah, we go away on a day trip or something with my brother and his friend. My brother's 4 years older than me, so obviously when you're a young kid, you look up to your older brother and all his mates. You want to do what they do, you know. And I remember being sort of in the park and all his mates demonstrating all these kicks and punches. And my mum said, don't go over there because they're going to hit you. And I was watching, and I wanted to do it. As soon as they were kicking and doing and hitting each other, it was like, oh, I want to do that because it looked so cool. And they were doing jumping kicks, and yeah, it just looked so cool. And that's what I wanted to do. As soon as I saw it, it was just, yeah, that's what I want to do that, you know.
Can you remember your first lesson?
Yeah, I messed around the whole session and got told off. I was awful. As a young kid, yeah, I found it hilarious. I don't know why. And I got told off. And when I came home, I was like, you're not going back there. You can't do that. But I did. I went back. She doesn't like me. I don't mess around now.
So I mean, most people can remember. I know I can certainly remember my first session. I can remember the hall. I can remember the smell. Yeah. I can remember everything, and it was just, you know, no doubt it's probably similar for you. It's probably, you know, you think about your nice dojang now, all kitted out, you know, and it was not like that. It was like a concrete floor, fag butts on the floor.
Yeah, totally different to how it is now. We've got luxury now, haven't we?
Yeah, kids are spoiled, aren't they? Kids are spoiled these days.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of the time as well, isn't it? You know, I know it's probably similar for you, but you only get into that particular martial art because that was what was near your house. Yeah. You know, you don't go. I mean, the kids these days, they've got the pick, haven't they? You can go on Google and you can look at all. You know, I quite fancy studying judo or jiu-jitsu, or I want to do taekwondo or kung fu or whatever it is. You've just got the pick, haven't you?
Yeah,
and mums and dads tend to drive the kids around a lot more than they. I don't know, certainly in my day, I never got took anywhere. No, if you wanted to go, you got on your bike and you went there.
Yeah, totally. There's so many martial arts out there now. Yeah, it's you know, people spoiled for choice. Like I say, we had well, back then for me, it was either kung fu, karate, or kickboxing. And I did do karate as well for quite a number of years. So I did the both alongside each other. There was taekwondo and tang sudo and judo. And that was probably it. You know, you did one or the other and that was it.
Yeah. Talk us through then your progression through your kung fu school. When did you, what sort of grade did you learn to start fighting, I suppose, sparring?
Right, so I didn't spar for quite a while, really. We did a lot of traditional stuff. I mean, we sparred with the instructor a little bit, you know, no pads, no head guard, no gloves, no feet pads. We just got in and
just lack a total disregard for any sort of safety.
Yeah,
your guard was, and speed was, again, out of the way was safety, wasn't it then?
Yeah, that was it. You had to move fast so you didn't get hit. You know, it came out with a few little lumps on your shins, and I remember having a big lump on my head, but I got cracked in the head once, and I had a big bump come up. But yeah, I probably didn't spar until my, I don't know, 3rd grade, something like that, which was my orange sash, which was quite. I mean, it's quite a few years down the line. It took me ages to grade in my kung fu, but it was quite a while. And then my first competition was in 1983, and it was the WAKO Nationals. And I think I was literally the only girl, and it was my very first competition. I got absolutely slaughtered in my first round, you know, because I didn't have.
I take it you were thrown in with the boys then.
Yeah, all in with the ball, and there was only 2 heights, so I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I remember these 2 height syndrome. Everyone lines up, and tallest to shortest, and then they just split it in the middle, don't they? And if you're lucky enough to be a little bit taller. So my downfall, I used to have an awesome Jackson 5 afro. Yeah, but what people didn't realise, that afro was probably a good 5 inches up here somewhere. But I was always getting put in the heavyweight division, and I was still just a little 10-year-old.
Yeah. I remember. I don't know if you remember a man called Pele Reed from Aston Laugar.
Yeah.
He was in the Pee-wees when I was in the Pee-wee. Everyone used to. I mean, he was in the big and I was in the small, so we never came across each other. But nobody wanted to fight Pele. But he was only still a kid, you know.
It's just one of those kids with a little bit of beard, though.
Yeah.
At 12 years old, you're looking at me. Oh my God! I didn't get a beard till I was about 23. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So Laugar, Sharon. So talk us through the style or the art itself. You know, I suppose for listeners that have never, because it's an art that you don't tend to hear of that much these days, do you? It's certainly in the when people talk about martial arts, they'll talk about your taekwondo, especially because taekwondo obviously, especially with kids involved, you know, it's one of the arts they tend to go for first. And then quite often they'll move from, you know, taekwondo and karate and maybe to jiu-jitsu or maybe into mixed martial arts. But you don't tend to hear so much of Laugar these days.
No.
I suppose talk us through the style a little bit.
So it's a kung fu style. It's obviously a soft Chinese style. Where obviously way back, so obviously when I was a child, Laugar, the Laugar Birmingham A team was an absolute, you know,
it was big back in the day, wasn't it?
Laugar. Yeah. Kevin Burton, Neville Roy, Humphrey Bruns,
Nathan Lewis,
Nathan. Oh, see, Nathan's obviously from Bristol, so I know Nathan really, really well. Yeah. Sean Vieira, all those sort of people, and it was a lot of people did know of the Laugar A team.
Notorious, weren't they? You know, notorious. You know, on the competition, things like Clash of the Clubs and stuff like that. It was always the Laugar team that everyone wanted to watch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were like amazing. And obviously, growing up, they were sort of my idols. I had pictures all over my wall of them all.
That's scary. We did as well. we had Nathan Lewis on not so long back, the old Megatron. And I remember looking at him fighting once in Clash of the Clubs, and me and Gavin agreed. We were scared of him just looking at him. He was so real. Never know really well, but it's like, oh my God, when we were kids, we were just looking up at him going, Megatron, I don't want to go near him.
He was great. He was great to have behind you because obviously we were from Bristol, you know. Yeah. Nathan would be behind us, coaching us, and I don't think anyone would dare beat us because Nathan was behind us. It was great.
Yeah. Legendary fighters. I mean, all of them, weren't they? I mean, we had Kevin Brewerton on the show as well.
Ah, cool.
While ago, you know, he's obviously still over in LA, and we've had again, like Jackson said, when we were youngsters, you look up to them and they're just your idols, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And you used to get, you know, in the centerfolds of martial arts Illustrated or Combat magazine. I don't know if you ever used to get Combat.
Yeah, I used to get
there was
them all.
always the centerfolds. You used to stick them on your wall. You used to have
Yeah.
Bruce Lee on there. I have to admit to having Janet Jackson on my walls as well. In between Bruce Lee and Kevin Burton.
Oh, brilliant. I wonder if the kids these days have anything like that. You know, I suppose they've all got social media and they can look it up.
Yeah, it's slightly different. I had a phone call the other week from one of my students, and he phoned me up and said, "Jackson, you're not going to believe this." I'm like, "Well," so he says, "I've just gone to do a quote in someone's house, and you're on their son's bedroom wall in a big picture frame."
Oh, brilliant.
Like, what? And I remember I've been winning the World Team Championships in 2003, taking this picture with this young lad. And now I know him really well now, and he's a big 18-year-old bloke. I say to him all the time, "You still got that picture of me on your wall?"
Oh, that's really good. That's really
well,
good.
yeah, I suppose they do. But I suppose again with social media, you don't get to see that type of thing too much these days, do you?
Yeah.
It's when you turn up and you find your image of you on their dartboard. That's when you got to worry.
That's when you got to worry. Yeah. Or burning effigy in their front garden.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, I mean, joking aside, you know, those magazines used to be our life when you were growing up, because there was no internet, there was no phones. It was like once a month. I remember you used to go and queue at the local, the corner shop, if you like, and you used to go and get your Combat and got your magazine, and you used to read it, you know, all the way through 4 or 5 times. And then me and Jackson used to get together, and we used to get the back page of it. We used to have all the competitions on, if you remember. And we used to say, right, where should we go this Sunday? And we just just turn up at these random competitions in the Coventry and
in the middle of the day,
Daventry around there. We used to get on the bus
sometimes just to go to a competition.
We used to get on our bus in our dough box, didn't we? We used to just get our dough box on and just get on the bus.
God, you'd be humiliated if you did that these days, that's for sure.
No, totally different these days. Totally different.
So you got into you had your first competition when you was how old then? Was it?
I was
9, something like that?
Yeah, it was 9.
And then, I mean, did you instantly have the bug for it, or was it when I know you said you got absolutely hammered by all these boys? What made you go back, I suppose, is the question.
All right. So what I remember from that tournament is watching Kevin Burton and Alvin Mighty. I didn't know them at the time, but I was watching them fight and watching all those. I think they were the heavyweight men, you know, watching them fight and how they prepared themselves. And I was just like, absolutely, the whole thing just blew my mind away. Watching them, I was like, that's what I want to do, you know, that's how I want to be. Because they were just awesome. And that was my first tournament, and it was absolutely I think we were in Granby Halls in Leicester.
Yeah,
the place was absolutely rammed. And then I remember going to the Tower Ballroom that same year, or might not been the same year, a few years later actually, and seeing the same fighters again, and it was just, you know, it was like, this is where I belong. This is what I want to do and see. And I just copied them. I copied everything they did and the way they prepared themselves. You know, I just copied what they did, because we weren't really coached the same way back then as how coaches coach these days. You know, we just had to pick things up and copy and do things ourselves, didn't we?
That's it, yeah.
Learn our own way from our own experiences, or copying the more advanced guys, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely addictive. You know, it was one of those, you know, when you got into martial arts, you got into it, didn't you? And I don't think kids have that these days. I don't know. I think there's just too many distractions and almost too many things going on. It's like when you sit down, isn't it? And you sit down at 10 o'clock at night and think, I'm going to watch something before I go to bed. And you get onto Sky and you spend half an hour just looking at what you're going to watch.
Yeah,
and
watch anything.
Yeah, exactly. Where you think back to when it was just 4 channels, you used to watch what was on and you used to enjoy it, and that was just how it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it probably similar scenario, I suppose, with the martial arts to a degree.
I think it's true, because if you, I mean, a lot of my students, they say, Jackson, I can only do one day a week this term, or because he's got swimming, or I've put him into acting classes, or she's doing her dancing classes, and then she's got trampolining. Then they've got cubs, and then I think these poor kids, you know, having had my own kids, you know, they were home doing activities at least 4 or 5 nights a week. So it is more congested, because I think, you know, parents are more conscious now that they need to provide that enrichment for their children, don't they? To give them that rounded view of things, and let them sample things.
There's an awful lot out there for kids to do.
I never did anything. I did taekwondo. That was it. Full stop. Taekwondo and karate. Well, taekwondo and martial arts, I suppose. If I wasn't over at training with my dad or Grandmaster Oliver or Dev, that's what I did 4 or 5 nights a week. Just that one thing. So I had that total focus. If I said to my dad, I want to go and join a football club, he'd just look at me and go, we don't do football, we do taekwondo.
The thing is that there's advantages and disadvantages for that, isn't there? Because I mean, when you look at where, I suppose, where we all are now, we've all been in the martial arts game for sort of 30, 35, 40 years, and it's become profession for most of us. And you get to do, like say things like the podcast and all these sort of things because you're so experienced in one particular art, I suppose, or one particular sector, if you like. Where when you think about, if you'd had more opportunity when you were younger to try all these other things, you might have actually found that your athletic ability, took you into a totally different area where you could have achieved even greater things in a different sport, but you just never had that opportunity.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read a book recently called it's based, I can't remember what it's called now.
It's audio, but you sent it to me, wouldn't you?
Yeah, audio book, but it was about being the specialist or being the generalist. So do you specialize in a certain thing and become extremely good at it, or do you do lots of different things, pick up generalist skills and then specialize in something? And there's really good case studies in it. So for example, Tiger Woods, who specifically focused on golf, doesn't do any other sport, he just played golf from the age of 2. And then on the other side of the house, the generalist was Roger Federer, tennis player, who actually could have played for Switzerland, football for Switzerland. He could have been a professional football player, and he'd done lots of different things. And but the outcome is the same. But they say now in today's world, because things are more general and wider arching with technology and greater communication, it's better to be the generalist and then look for something to specialize in. And particularly where, now, we're having careers that are 10 years. A career is a 10-year thing these days. There's no such thing really as a job for life, is there? You'll do something for, where our parents, my dad, he worked for Ford's for 38 years. That's almost unheard of these days, isn't it? People staying for in a role that long. So yeah, interesting book. I'll have to get the title and post it out there for people to read. Really good. Some really good arguments in there.
Are you an audiobook junkie, Sharon?
Yep, I do like my audiobooks. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I listen to them as I go to sleep. I just put them on and listen away every night.
I used to, and then I started wasting the audiobook. So now I just listen to Gavin. That gets me to sleep within about 2 minutes.
You should. Yeah. Jackson listens to the Motivated Martial Artist podcast before you go to sleep, there, Jackson. So you can hear so we can hear his own voice.
So when was the first competition that you were successful in then, and what did you define as successful, Sharon?
Well, for me, obviously, I define successful as coming first. I think because after a while I started training a lot different. So I had different. My first instructor was a man called Trevor Johnson. And then after a few years, I found Lloyd Allen, who was the Bristol Deaf Squad main instructor. He's our main chief instructor for Bristol Laugar. And then I started training with all the Bristol guys when I was 11, I think. And they really sort of brought me on loads within the sparring and the competing side. And my first major tournament that I won was the Combat Open in the Tower Ballroom. I don't know if you remember Bay Logan. I think he used to be the editor of the Combat magazine.
Yes, yeah.
And I think he was sort of running it. And I remember coming first in that one. But back then we'd have the sort of, because we were I was always a small pee-wee, the smallest kid. So I sort of, because I was quite small anyway. I still am. But we sort of did our divisions first thing in the morning, and then they'd hold the finals until the last thing at night.
Yeah, it was exactly the same. So you're just messing around doing nothing all day.
Yeah, but you met so many people and so many friends, and you know, you get to speak to your Neville Rays and your Kevin Brewington, because they knew all the Bristol guys, and I got to meet them and speak to them, and it was absolutely brilliant for me. And then we'd have to watch all those guys fight, and then you'd have the final afterwards. And I remember winning and being thrown up in the air because it was such a big thing then.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was.
And everyone stayed for those finals, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, they close all the rest of the squares down and put that one square in the middle.
That's right.
Everybody watched it. So you started obviously with the P. I suppose you were probably the first division on, weren't you?
Yeah. Everyone would watch.
Girls Pee-wees, and then all the way up to the men's heavyweight black belts.
Yeah, and then they do a team event at the end. You know, that's how we learned, because I don't think kids do that nowadays. They do their divisions and they're gone because, you know, the finals are done. Want to get home for Sunday lunch or whatever, and you know, and I don't think kids have that thing of watching the really good experienced fighters.
Yeah, no,
I think some kids do it. Some kids do. It's more the parents when they get home quite often the time as well. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, so.
we can have tournaments where we've got 3,000 competitors across all the different grades, patterns, sparring, light continuous, and points and destruction. And sometimes those competitions, you know, we run 20-25 squares sometimes, and they're done by 3 o'clock. Start at 9 and they're done in 6 hours. Just boom. You know, it's like a sausage factory machine. Just so efficient now. Yeah, but again, you don't get to see, you know, you might have all the black belt divisions on at the same time. So you don't actually get to see all the fighters like you used to do, like I say, when you just close the competition down and everybody focused on that final. And that, to me, that was better, because it meant something to be in the final, because it meant everyone is going to watch you. Everyone, you know, half of the hall is going to be screaming for you, half are going to be screaming against you, and that atmosphere fires you up, doesn't it? It really does.
Phenomenal. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I don't think that atmosphere has been around for a long time now. You know.
No. I mean, I got back into martial arts when I left the forces in 2007, and then in 2000, so I was competing for 2 years. Got back into the TAGB team, and we did the Clash of the Titans in 2009. And that was the first time, I mean, even though we'd been away to international competitions, where you got that focus and the atmosphere just solely focused on one mat. And that, you know, it was super hype. It was hyped up. It was awesome. And you don't get a feeling like that. So yeah, I think they are missing out on that slightly these days.
Yeah, they were great days. They really were. So that was the first one I remember. And that's why, because quite early on, I was getting first places. That's why in my head, you know, for me, I think being successful is gold first.
Gold. So just prior to that, how many competitions would you say you attended where you didn't win?
That first one, when I got absolutely slaughtered, and there was one other one in Wales, which I went with Lloyd Allen, and I got third. I got a bronze there.
Okay, so you saw some progression. I mean, most people we speak to, they never win their first competition. I think we've had about two guests on that said, natural straight away. Everyone else was like, nope, got my ass whooped.
Yeah.
Got it whooped first competition. Second one, maybe I place, and it's that progression, isn't it? So if you know, take that motivation from failure, I suppose, but learn from it and then progress. You know, some people say, right, you know, I want to train harder. Others people say, I get it. I needed to learn the rules. I think we had a Dev was saying, you know, he was there ready to fight hard. Some guy hit him with a roundhouse. My gosh, what's it called? 1 point done, fight over. And he's like, huh? I haven't done anything yet. They didn't really understand the rules. So that was his like go-to thing. Go and learn the rules of the competition next time. Yeah. So all sorts of different things. But I suppose it's the ultimate thing is learning from those failures, because that's what they are. But it's not a bad thing too, as long as you can learn from it. Yeah.
I think sometimes learning from a lot. Obviously, I've lost in years after that. You know, I haven't won every single competition going up. Yeah. And I think the losers are the losses are just as important as the wins, because you learn. You know, you get knocked back a peg or two, and then it gives you that little kick at the backside that you need to train harder, to defend more. You know, get faster, or whatever you've got to do.
No, most definitely. So how do you deal with failure? Do you embrace it? Or is it something, you know, are you a sore loser? Do you get angry with yourself? Or do you sit down? Did you analyze why you failed at that particular thing?
I'm not a great loser, I'll be honest. I think that's why I've been so successful, is because I absolutely hate losing at anything, not just the martial art, at anything. You know, even if I'm having a little sprint against the kids in the club, you know, I've got to win. Yeah, I'll try and beat them.
You're not like Boris Johnson, are you?
Now.
Pushing them over.
Yeah. No, I'm just super competitive. You know, if I'm playing a game of cards with my mates or something, you know, I'm just really super competitive. I really do have to win at everything. Yeah. And I think that's probably been built in me because I've been involved in martial arts and competing at an early age.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
You know, I don't think that's a bad thing in this day and age, because the first thing you do when you leave school or university is you have to go and try and get a job, you know. And
you're competing, you're constantly competing, aren't you?
Yeah.
Myself personally, I hate losing. I'm a gracious loser, you know. I'll always respect the opponent, etc. But inside, I'm just angry with myself. I'm fed up. I want to learn from it. You know, after a competition, I'm back on. If I've lost to somebody, back on the road running. First thing I'm thinking as I'm trying to up my pace or run up that hill is that person in front of me.
Yeah. You don't want to lose again, do you? Like you do anything you possibly can to beat that person.
Yeah. I think it is a good life skill to have, because again, you know, when you're working, even, you know, when you're in your job, you know, you want to beat the next dojan, don't you, down the road? You want to have more members. You want to be the best coach. So you got to do something different to be the best coach. But you're using that same, I suppose, motivation, you know, for not wanting to come second place.
Yeah, I mean that's now my one of my main priorities is being the best coach out there. I want to learn all the best coaching ways. I'm constantly like trying to learn things, trying to see how to get my students faster, see how to get them stronger. You know, there's so much open to us information to coaches to get out there. And I think that now is where I'm at, you know, is I'm competing against other coaches to make my students the best, you know.
Yeah, sure.
It's a real challenge though, isn't it? And it's a challenge all the way from getting the student to coaching the student, to retaining the student, and to ultimately retaining them when they reach what a lot of students see as the end goal, which is the black belt. It's then keeping them after that, isn't it? And then trying to get them into maybe to coaching or to competitions. And, you know, you've always got to try and look at what's next for them in the journey, because it's ultimately it's progression that keeps people interested, isn't it? What's next? What's next for me to achieve? Because there's never an end goal, is there? That's the thing.
No.
You know, as you guys know, you know, you're there, aren't you? And you know, your dream might be to win a world championships, and once you win that world championships, you'll be like, right, what's next? You know what I mean? And if you've not got anything else to train for, then that's when you start losing interest, isn't it?
So just going back to you before we delve into the coaching side and things that you're looking at there, Sharon, just talk to us about some of your highlights of your competitive career. So when did you win your first title? How did that come about, etc.?
So my first world title was in 1991. It was an IAXA World Championships. It was in Berlin. And I was quite lucky, should I say, really, because the year before, 1990, I was still in the kids divisions. It was an MAI, and one of the chaps who was in the Laugar team, he came up to me and he said that, you know, there was an open slot in the ladies lightweight. And the European Championships that year was in England. It was in Birmingham. Would I want to go and fill it? And I sort of went up to my dad. I was 15, so I was almost 16. I went up to my dad. I was like, "Oh, can I do this?" You know, I mean, if you want to. So I was quite lucky. So I got in the England team or the British team just like that.
It's interesting now, because you struggle to get into the adults team until you're 18 now.
No,
and I suppose going back to better structure, isn't it? So taking you from a junior to 16, then a cadet, and now into an adult. And, you know, again, we talk about this all. Gavin and I used to do some of these open circuit tournaments as young 14, 15-year-olds, and then we'd go and book into the men's lightweight just to make the day. You know, we've travelled all that way. We're going to get our money's worth.
Get some more fights,
Exactly, It's always harder because, you know, adults can punch and kick a lot harder than.
They didn't care either, did they?
No. They saw us as a walkover, didn't they?
Yeah.
We often, surprised them a little bit, which was good. So how did the competition go in the team then?
The first Europeans I actually won. I won both. So I was only a yellow sash then, which in Laugar was your 5th grade. So I got the gold then, and then because I got the gold, you know, they were straight in a team, blah blah blah. Went to Berlin the following year. It was a lot harder, I'm not going to lie. You know, I remember having some really hard fights, and it was all in a ring. So I did points fighting, and I did light contact. And I got silver in light contact. I remember fighting this German lady, and she absolutely gave me a battering. The lightest weight then was minus 55 kilos, and I weighed 47. I remember weighing in, fully clothed up, right? And there was a big difference. The size of us was really different.
So what weight did you normally fight at then?
So I used to fight minus 55, and then when we started doing WAKO, I actually went down a weight, so I fought minus 50s.
Okay, it's a huge difference, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yeah, 5 kilos is a big difference, you know. And I used to sit around 50 kilos quite comfortably. I used to make it easy, you know. I still do. It's not a hard weight. It was quite an easy weight for me, so yeah, I was quite comfortable at that. But yeah, IAXA then was only, they did 3 weights: minus 55, minus 65, and plus 65 for women.
Yeah.
So it was quite a big step. But that was my first major win, was Berlin, and I do remember it really visual. I can remember everything from it.
Yeah,
it was in we actually stayed, it was a year after the wall got knocked down. The Berlin Wall got knocked down, and we stayed in East Berlin, and we had to travel to West Berlin every day. And
traveling to 2 different countries, wasn't it, at the time? I remember being over there in the army.
Yeah, it was just crazy. You know, I was just 16, and my dad came along with me, and you know, I absolutely, we stayed in the right dive, but I absolutely loved it. It was the best thing ever for me, you know. It was just great. I loved it. I was knackered when I came back. I think I had to have 2 or 3 days off school because I was absolutely shattered, you know.
Exhausted. It's a physically exhausting event, but also mentally as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, traveling to another country, being part of the team, fighting, you know, I think people underestimate the mental strength that you have to have as well.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I didn't understand, you know, I didn't get that. I didn't get that I was feeling exhausted. You just carried on until you came home, and you just sort of, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely overwhelmed with everything when you're there. And when you come back, it's just, you just go on a complete downer because it's done. You've won, you know. You start getting ill for a couple of days. It's just
the thing is, back in those days, again, there was no real nutrition advice, was there? Either. It was just you used to have a McDonald's before you go and fight.
Yeah.
If you could find one.
I was going to say, if you can find some decent food, you know, I think I lived on spaghetti bolognese every night then. There wasn't much to eat, you know. But again, it's not something that I remember. I don't even think I ate for a couple of days, because it was just not something that I just wanted to go and fight. I wasn't worried about eating or drink. You know, I didn't know anything about that. It was just there to fight and win, and that's all I wanted to do. It's just so different to nowadays, you know, totally different.
A wealth of information out there now, isn't there, in all aspects of training.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your schools then, Sharon. So you run 2 full-time centres in Bristol. How's that gone? How have you coped with all the lockdown and everything?
So I run a business called GB Fit alongside my business partner called Dan Blythe. And obviously during lockdown was a very hard time. Well, we ran quite a few successful Zoom classes. I mean, I was doing like between 20 and 30 Zoom sessions per week for all. It was
hard work, wasn't it? Hard work.
I was doing the same. Yeah, because you can't just stand there and shout on Zoom. You know, you have to get in and demonstrate everything and train with them all, and you know, which is great for us, but it was very tiring. I'm not going to lie. It was a hard time, especially this last lockdown over the Christmas period and
the winter.
Oh yeah, because I've got in my garage, I've got a big setup. I've got a big double garage, all fully matted out. So I was in my garage doing all my Zoom sessions, and it was -3 and something. I'm a fully hat on, you know.
You know what? It sounds exactly the same. That's what I was doing as well. January, and you're there. I had about 3 layers on in my garage. You know, and it's like saying to my wife, right, after doing my class, right, back in the garage again. You know, you go in there, and you got all these, you got the big screen in there, all the kids on there.
Yeah.
And you know, when we got back to it, and I was getting like parents, Mr. Cook, you know, I'm just not feeling motivated. I'm thinking, you're not motivated.
No,
you try being me in my freezing garage, teaching the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it was hard, wasn't it? It was hard. When we have to stand up, you know, first thing on a Saturday morning, nice and early, bright-eyed, bushy tail, how is everyone?
Yeah,
you know?
hello, I'm really motivated.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard work.
It was, yeah, it was.
And it's funny, 'cause I know I was always during for all the virtual stuff, really, I was quite keen to keep a lot of that up at the time. I was like, you know what, I think it's going to be definitely be good to keep some of this up when we get back.
Yeah.
Now I'm back to normal classes. I'm like, sod the virtual stuff.
Yeah.
I am over that shite now.
Yeah. I've still got two because I've got a group of ladies who are from different parts of England, so we have to do it on Zoom, but I dread it. I absolutely hate it, but I do it because they really want to train. It's just a fitness session. They really enjoy it. That's the only reason I do it, just for them. It's not something I enjoy doing. But no, I was saying, as soon as we were back face to face, it was like, I'm done with Zoom. As much as it saved our businesses, really, didn't it?
Of course, no,
Yeah.
it did, no, for sure.
Yeah.
So what's your sort of setup in your dojo then? Do you do things like after school stuff? Do you do breakfast club? Do you do? I know a lot of your talking to you off air. I know you talk a lot of your club is kids, is children.
Yeah.
As most martial arts schools are these days. It's sort of probably 80-90% children and families, isn't it? For sure, for most instructors. So how do you sort of run it between you and your business partner?
So we teach more or less every day. We both teach. He's got a gym over on one side in Bedminster, and I've got a gym over in Hallfield. So different sides of Bristol. And we teach our classes more or less on the same evening. So we do sort of 4 to 7 year olds, little dragons. Obviously, because of COVID, we can only have a certain amount of kids in each class.
Yeah.
And I then run three classes each night for your 8 to sort of 15, 16 year olds, and sparring classes. So I could do sometimes 4 or 5 classes in an evening, just running, with disinfecting in between and so forth.
Yeah.
I also run after school clubs in schools with my business partner. We run together, myself and Dan. We go in and teach together in some schools. So we run an actual after school club. So the kids are literally come from their class straight to us. Yeah. And that's worked out quite well. Obviously, we have lost a lot of students from that in the after schools, because now we're only allowed 15. And at some point, we had about 45 kids. But now, because of the ruling, we can only have a certain amount of kids. Shame, really.
Yeah. They're quite hard, those, aren't they? Sometimes the after school. I used to do them, and it's great when you've got the kids that are really engaged, but then you get the ones that are almost just there because mum's going to be running late from work.
Yeah.
They're totally no interest at all, and it's quite difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. It is just after school care. It's engaging with them and having fun with them and trying to make them enjoy something.
Yeah.
That's the main thing with them. But obviously, let's just they're not really into their martial arts or learning.
It feeds through, though, doesn't it? It feeds through to your academies, doesn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah. Those who are interested, definitely.
Yeah. No, like I say, it is interesting because we speak to a lot of instructors, and I think as a lot, it's not so bad now, but towards the end of COVID, they were just dealing with that burnout because it was just so full on for this period, and it's so nice just to get back on the mat. And do the stuff that you enjoy doing. At the end of the day, I mean, when you signed up for it, you're a sparrer like myself and Jackson. It was all about, when we were growing up, it was all about the sparring. Yes, we like doing forms and patterns, and it's all part of it, but ultimately, I think it's the sparring element that kept you in it. Kept us in it. Early for this amount of time, and when you can't teach any of that stuff, it's just it's tough.
Very hard. Hey, go and hit the bag again, guys. Come on, They want to hit each other, didn't they? Hit each other and a bit of fun, like.
Yeah. Punch someone in the face. Have you got any competitions coming up? Have they got any started? They started to bring them out now?
Not at the moment. No, it's still quite stale at the moment for us. There's not a lot going on. We have had a WAKO GB squad training a couple of weeks ago. That was really good. Really enjoyed that. And that was face to face. We got in and saw everyone. But we've had to sort of put everything on hold just because of the Delta variant that's coming out. Nobody really knows what's going on, and I think sports halls are a little bit more reluctant to sort of allow you to have groups coming in now. So I think we're sort of putting a few things on hold now until we can get out. Maybe until the next sort of lockdown lifts, until it goes back together, we can sort of get out and do compete. That's what everyone wants to do is have a good old proper competition and
not I suppose they want to compete, but they want to get back and see people, don't they? You want to get back and speak to your friends. That actually, I mean, we were talking about this the other day. You know, a lot of our martial arts family, we get to see them 3, 4, 5 times a year on that competition, and you'll bump into them. How you doing? You have a quick chat, then you'll move on to the next one. We haven't had that for literally coming up a year and a half now.
Yeah,
it's been quite difficult. So it'd be nice to get back and start meeting those people again, meeting your martial arts family, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? You know, you do meet. I mean, I've got some close friends who I've met alongside tournaments, you know, from years ago. And one of them, I don't know if you remember Lorna Thompson Brown, she was from Aston Laugar. And she actually came on and did one of my Zoom sessions with me in lockdown. She messaged me and said, "Oh, can I do some training with you?" I was like, "Yeah, of course you can," you know, and it was great. I haven't seen her for years and years.
Yeah. It's getting that personal touch back, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So what's next for you then, Sharon? Is what does the future hold, I suppose? Plans.
Well, I think to begin with, I think it's getting the team back together and actually getting on the mat competing and having that, like you say, going away as a team, and the team bonds better together then when they go away and compete against other clubs. You have a really good bond with your own team. And I think for me, to begin with, it's going away to local tournaments, little tournaments or inter clubs, and just getting my guys back competing, because I think it'll be a shock to begin with, you know, just getting on the mat. You haven't done it for what a year and a half.
It's not sparring. It'll be interesting. I was saying, remember, Gavin, the referees are going to have a hard time.
The referees haven't been refereeing for a year and a half, so that's going to be interesting.
It's going to be challenging, and you know, a lot of people, their timing's going to be out. It's going to be a murder.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard work.
First one is going to be fun. I just can't wait to get back, you know. And then eventually, there are a few international tournaments that are happening, but I don't really feel ready to travel yet, and until I know I can get proper insurance, or I know I'm safe in a country and I can get back. Okay, I'm not ready to travel internationally. Normally we travel 5, 6, 7 times a year to lots of different international tournaments, you know, at least. So I want to get back to that sort of level and take the team everywhere, you know.
So one of the questions we ask all of our guests, Sharon, as we are the motivated martial artists, what motivates you? What's been motivating you? What motivates you now? Because obviously motivations change at different stages of your life. But what's motivating you now then?
Now at this very moment? Yeah. Watching my students. I know obviously they can't compete, but watching my students win. I'm quite lucky because we've got some really talented students in my club. I've got a current world WAKO champion and a European WAKO champion. They're all juniors. One's 16, one's 13. But that for me is just like me winning. You know, it's such a good feeling. Just getting kids into the British team as well. You know, that's quite, because it's quite a big thing to get into the WAKO GB team. And again, if I can get 6, 7, 8 of the kids from my own club into the GB team, I think it gives everyone that's in my club, all those who compete,
it gives them a lift, doesn't it? It gives them a boost. It gives them something to strive for as well.
And it gives them belief as well. You know, if they see other kids who are there training alongside that they can do it, it's like, right, you know what, I know I can do it and I want to get there. And I think is when you've got kids like that in your own club, it brings everyone else up.
It's inspiring. It does lift the level, doesn't it? It does.
Oh yeah, it's such a great feeling, isn't it? That great feeling is what you kind of thrive on, is what makes you come back again. And sometimes it's success, sometimes it's winning a fight in the club. You know, if you've not won for a little while, if you're one of the new ones, and then all of a sudden you go and beat little Johnny, and he's always beating you, and that's a great lift, you know. And then for me, it's like, well done, you know, you've done really well today. And I think it's just seeing success in my students. That's really, really good for me. Yeah, and obviously years and years ago, if you'd have asked a question, it would have been my own success, but it's completely changed now, completely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and I suppose one of the final questions then, Sharon. So, you know, looking back over your career and everything you've achieved, so you know, this far, it sounds like you've got loads more to achieve, certainly with your schools and everything else. What advice would you give to a younger you if you could do it all again?
if this is something that you really want to do and you want to win, I mean, I don't know if you know, but WAKO literally on Friday, we became fully recognised Olympic sport. So it's absolutely phenomenal. So that it's opened like another big opening for us to sort of give us goals or.
Well, I think it goes back to that multi-school thing, isn't it? So a lot of other sports have always had these opportunities, and now we're over the last probably decade, we're starting to see martial arts and martial artists being recognised as the athletes they are, alongside your tennis players, your football players, your rugby players, and that fantastic news about getting WAKO into the Olympics. That is excellent. So it gives those competitors a real platform to strive to get to, but also gives them the recognition, that they deserve. That perhaps, certainly we didn't get, without a doubt, our generation. But it's great that it's our generation that are pushing that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen over a number of years. But you've got kids who are world champion now, and okay, it's like you say, what's the next thing for them? Let's be world champion again. But now it's like, right, okay, I've got another level to aim for now.
To the Olympics, that's huge, absolutely huge.
Is it K1? Is it K1 format? I think.
So I'm not sure at the moment. In the World Games for us, it is K1, but I'm not sure what discipline it's going to be just at this moment. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be points, but who knows?
Something to look forward to.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Really, really is.
You know what, Sharon? It's been an absolute pleasure having you on this morning. Thank you for taking the time out to speak to us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I've absolutely enjoyed it. I've loved it.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, and thanks for rearranging it short notice with the football coming on. Yeah. Just saying, Jackson, we maybe should have kept it this evening when we're all drunk after England had just won.
Make
it for a good podcast.
As per normal, I think.
Drown our sorrows.
Yeah, Sharon, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.